Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans, and where the content is free. It is episode 184 of the weekly podcast, and the first of the new season of the 22-23 season. We've had an extended break this summer, but we're back now to give you the same content as always free, always independent, all that kind of stuff, guys. As I've said to you before, it's not just the pod that we do here at Gersnet. Get yourself onto the website, articles, forums, all that kind of a thing. There's a history archive on the website as well, so get yourself on there. If you know that you're new to the pod, or if you're not new to the pod, we'd ask you to promote it, get the word out there on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, please, if you can. Before I go on, I should point out I have a bit of an issue with my mouth tonight. I have a mouth ulcer, and it is agony, and it is affecting how I speak. So if I sound a bit as if I've had a stroke or something like that, that's the reason why, or if I've been at the dentist or something, it is quite sore. So if I'm slurring my words, that's fine. Okay, so first week back, I've got Dougie and David here. Dougie, how was your summer?
Good summer. Yeah, good to have time with the family. I was going to say good weather, but we've had that kind of really muggy week. Other than that, it's been pretty wet and miserable here, but managed to get away with the family for 2 weeks over in Spain. So, good summer, ready to get back into football again. I've missed it.
What about yourself, David? Did you get away anywhere?
What are you doing, Colin? No, I've not been able to get away yet. I've got passport issues. So hopefully
they don't let you out of the country, is that what it is?
No, I've got passport application issues, so I'll hopefully get away next October. So,
are you joining us live from Dover tonight? Is that? Are you stuck in that 7-hour queue?
Don't wish you any ill on those poor people.
No, I know.
Shocking state of affairs, isn't it?
It's pretty grim. And I think Eck had similar issues with his passport when he was trying to get to Seville. It's funny you talk about the weather there. I need to mention my mate Scott, who we just argue all the time, right, about climate change. Right, he's a climate change denier. He doesn't think it's a thing. And we were arguing about it today again, having a couple of pints in our local, and he's sitting there sweating like the sweat is literally pouring off him. He's going, no, there's no an issue with the weather at all. Like, it's not too hot. It was as warm as this back in 1976. But Scott, look at you. You know what I mean? You've lost about 3 stone just saying that sentence. So I am quite enjoying that, and a wee hello to Scott. Before I go into the agenda as well, guys, I think we should have a wee mention of Andy Gorham, who obviously passed away during the break there when we were away. I'll come to you on Andy, David, because you're probably more of an age to remember him than Dougie. I mean, loads of people have him down as the best Rangers keeper of all time. Kind of hard to disagree with that. He certainly put in the best individual performance I've ever seen by a Rangers goalkeeper that night in Leeds. And I mean, I know he had his issues off the field and all the rest of it, but as a keeper, he'll go down as a legend of the club.
No, undoubtedly. It was a bit of even though we were expecting it, it was a bit of a kick to the stomach to receive the news there a couple of Saturdays back that Andy had passed away. But I concur totally with you, Colin. A Rangers legend, a bona fide Rangers legend. In his day, a world-class goalkeeper. No many genuine world-class players come out of Scotland or play in Scotland. So Andy's right up there. Again, you mentioned Leeds there. He made countless performances. When you think back to when he actually moved from Easter Road, one of his first games, I can remember him. He didn't have a great game against Sparta Prague at Ibrox.
I was there that night. That was my first European game, actually.
Right, I was there that night, and I remember when we sold the jerseys.
Scott
Crab at Tynecastle. Looked, as if it was too much for him. And then did he cover himself in glory with Keith Wright. Was going for Hibs at Hampton, the League Cup semi. But my God, did he make up for it? And I got a goalkeeper. And when you think of Tommy Burns, he said he speaks as one of the best goalkeepers, if not the best goalkeeper in Europe. I think that speaks volumes. And if you're one of the best goalkeepers in Europe, that's going to make you one of the best goalkeepers in the world, isn't it? By default. So, sad day for the Rangers support, and unfortunately I couldn't make it down to Ibrox in the window for the Scott test to pass by, but I was there in spirit, and I'm sure I speak for hundreds of thousands of Rangers supporters and the sadness expressed at his passing. Yeah,
very sad, and it's, he's the first of that 92, 93 team. It's also a wee bit of a reminder that we're all getting a bit older. You know what I mean? That because that team doesn't seem that long ago, but ironically and incredibly, it's 30 years ago this summer we were embarking on that momentous campaign. So yeah, a wee reminder that we're all getting a wee bit older. Right, moving on, guys. Like we met up yesterday. Used to myself and Frankie to watch the Spurs game. I have to say, I never seen much of the game. So much chat going on, bit of drinking going on. So I'm going to put most of the football stuff towards you two guys, right? Because overall, I can't really remember much about it, if I'm being honest, other than the goal. So, Dougie, I'll come to you first. General feeling looking at Twitter and that today, and what I do remember, what I seen yesterday was, first half pretty good, second half Spurs sort of came into a wee bit more. But what was your feeling on the sort of general performance?
Cheers for handing that bomb scare to me there after several pints trying to watch a game of football. Personally, I'm the same. I've watched the reaction on Twitter today, and I think a lot of Rangers fans need to remember that we were up against proper world-class footballers, a very good team and a well-organised team led by a top manager. A lot of people, I know we're going to want the players who have impressed and didn't impress yesterday, but a lot of people are making snap decisions and judgments on one performance against a very good team. Again, from what I saw of it, I agree with your summary. I think first half we played well, second half we didn't play as well. There were some moments during the game that were good, not so good. The highlight for me was the fact that Čolak scored. I'm delighted that he got his goal because for two reasons. One, some people were writing him off before the game and even after the game, critical of Čolak already. He's a new player, he's just joined, he's adjusting to a new team, a new style, a new country, new teammates, everything that's very difficult for a new player to settle in. That goal will help him, it'll help his confidence. We've got a lot of responsibility on his shoulders at the beginning of the season, given the injuries that we have at the moment with Morelos and Roof. So hopefully that goal will do him the world of good. In terms of towards the back of the pitch, a couple of thoughts around the goals. One, I don't think you can argue that Harry Kane's world class. I think he's one of the best number 9s in world football. For the first goal in particular, people are fairly critical of Connor Goldson not getting closer to him, not being able to block the shot. Personally, I think it's just an absolutely brilliant touch to the side from Kane and then a brilliant snapshot finish that you can't blame the goalie. I don't think you can blame Goldson for either. So really, really good goal. The second one's a wee bit more concerning for me, and I think was more of a pattern through the game. There seemed to be a little bit of a gap between our defenders. The line wasn't so solid. And actually, when you look at the goal itself, if you freeze frame it, when Harry Kane picks up the ball, Connor Goldson's not in a flat back four. He's actually kind of in the midfield area. Suter's coming across in the middle, and Barisic is a wee bit in no man's land. So I think the goal's a wee bit of a concern. But as I said, pre-season, overall, I think it was a good end. I know we played today, but I think that was a good end, a good test, getting us ready for the real business starting next weekend.
David, what about yourself? Was there anything from yesterday's game in terms of the performance and all that kind of thing. I mean, it's ironic that Dougie's talking about supporters writing off Colin. I've seen some criticism sort of aimed towards Suter as well. And, you've just given a good example there, Andy Gorham, written off very early on, had a couple of howlers, and, we all know what happened there. He went on to become a legend. So very, very early on to be judging players, I think.
Undoubtedly. I mean, yes, you're bedding in new players, as Dougie rightly said. Those new players are adjusting a new tactic. Some players are adjusting to a higher level of expectation, just a whole shift in how they're expected to perform as players. Coupled with the fact you've got John Suter who's playing the left-hand side of the centre of defence, which, as far as I know, he's not used to playing, certainly his time at Tynecastle. I don't know so much about Tannadice because that's a while ago now, but he's got to learn his new role. Other players are just coming in, so you're going to expect some mistakes to be made in pre-season, and they're better to be made during these friendly games as opposed to competitive actions. So, I thought what we seen yesterday, watching the game, because obviously we're doing a bit of blather. The pass in the first half looked to be slick. Looked to be some decent moves. We've got some decent footballers that can move the ball quite tidily, and obviously the kind of new charges were brought in. Colin, he looked to be okay. I agree with Dougie insofar as it's good for these guys to get a goal early. Obviously Tom Lawrence managed to Naby Matondo managed to break their scoring ducks on Tuesday night against West Ham. So Colin getting a goal, grabbing a goal is going to be good for the confidence. Gets that kind of monkey off his back, if there is such a thing, so to speak, off his back early doors, and he can concentrate and play, putting all his energies into getting ready for next Saturday. So I mean, look, it's I wouldn't read too much into pre-season form, and obviously Spurs are a good side with good players, and as Dougie rightly said, they're a coach that's been on the block a few times, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, again, trying to remember much of the game at all yesterday. It does seem to me to be a bit early. I mean, it was good to see. I mean, I think we were arguing for about 10 minutes about how to pronounce Cholak. Was it Kolak or Cholak or Cholach? We'll go with Cholak. You know what I mean? So that maybe gives an indication how much attention we were actually paying to the game. But I was glad he got his goal. It obviously helps, especially a striker, especially when you consider the situation, which we'll come on and talk about, around the sort of strikers at the moment, with Morelos and Roof still injured. So yeah, good to see, but yeah, I have to be honest, I feel like a bit of a waste of space to talk about the game yesterday because I didn't see a huge amount of it. So right, moving on, Dougie. I mean, we've said there's been a lot of discussion. I've noticed some of it today on social media. A lot of players, some, getting a bit of criticism. Was there anyone who particularly impressed yesterday, especially amongst the new guys? Was there anyone, as I said, Suter was getting a bit of stick that you think, a wee bit worried? Or are you in the frame of mind that, what, it's pre-season and these things happen at pre-season, as David alluded to there, new players bedding in, new system, blah, blah, blah.
I'm just looking at the comments just now, Colin, and a few people are talking about the Suter and the Goldson partnership's going to take some time to gel. Suter historically and typically played in a back three or played in the right-hand side of the defence as well. So that'll take some time to form. But and the reality is, Ben Davies started today in the Queen's Park game. I think the partnership longer term is going to be Davies and Goldson. Suter will be challenging him all the way. He's a good player. I don't think we should be writing off Suter so soon. But I think the partnership at the back is going to take a wee bit of time to develop. We've had a pretty steady defence for a few years now, and I think we're going to have to adjust to new players coming in. The other slight concern is the goalie. There was some comments after the Spurs game around our style of play. It seemed to be, particularly West Ham, we were definitely playing it out from the back. We tried it again against Spurs, and I think whilst against West Ham, McLaughlin had a few scary moments with the ball at his feet, we know that's not one of McGregor's strengths. McGregor's arguably one of the best shot stoppers in the league, the best shot stopper in the league, probably our second best ever goalie at the club. But when you put the ball at his feet, he's a bit of a bomb scare. So there's still a wee bit of a question mark around the goalkeeping position for me. But you just touched on it there. It's pre-season. We can't judge too much. We'll know more come Livingston next weekend as to whether the team's ready or not. But in terms of who impressed, I think because of our lack of attention to the game, it's very difficult to call out specific moments. But from what I've seen, we've got a real good spine to the team right now. And it was evident against West Ham as well. I thought James Tavernier was superb in both games. He looks every bit a top player now for us. When you compare the James Tavernier that we signed, I think Tav now is the type of player that could walk into a Spurs team, to be perfectly honest. The other player that's a key player for us now is Connor Goldson, and we'll come on and talk about the squad and how important it is that we managed to keep Connor Goldson. He had a tough shift up against Harry Kane. We were watching the telly, and again, we didn't watch much of it, but everyone that was at the game was talking about how fluent the front three were for Spurs. And for me, that front three is arguably one of the best front threes in world football. You know, Harry Kane and Son in particular could walk into most teams. And I think Connor Goldson dealt with it very well at the back as well. And then the other player that kind of forms part of the spine is Lundstrom. I think Lundstrom throughout last season just grew into the Rangers jersey. And I think even yesterday he looked very calm, very composed, very assured. And every bit the central midfield player that we need. The player that I'd call out is probably the man of the match from what I've seen, and who's impressed me a lot in pre-season is Glenn Kamara. When you look at some of the players that have left the club this window, they seem to be his mates. They're his circle. And I think a lot of people probably assumed that this was the time to move on Kamara. Long way to go with the transfer window yet. But Glenn Kamara's still here. And I tell you what, Glenn Kamara's a very, very good footballer, technically superb. And I think he showed up very well in pre-season. West Ham and Spurs, very comfortable in possession, moves it on very well. And I think he impressed me against Spurs from what I've seen as well. So they're the concerns for me, and they're the highlights.
David, in terms of Suter, I'll focus on Suter at the moment because I've seen some comments. I think as Dougie's just alluded to there, I mean, we all had a laugh at the Super League, right? And say, why are Spurs there, right? I mean, because you had your Real Madrid, your Barcelona, all the rest of it, and then like Spurs, you're like, I know they're a big club, but why are they part of the Super League? But I don't think you can deny just how good a team they are. They are a good team in that front three, and I think we've got to remember that. I mean, in terms of Suter, I'm more looking at his performance against us in the Scottish Cup final. I thought he was excellent that day. I looked at that performance and thought we signed a good player. I'm not going to judge him in a friendly against Harry Kane and Spurs. You know what I mean? I think we need to give the boy time, settle in. I think we've seen enough from him at Hearts to suggest that he could be a good signing for the club. And it just seems a bit early to be laying into him.
No, definitely. I mean, you can't be judging guys in a couple of pre-season friendlies. That's crazy. But having said that, we've been watching Rangers for long enough to know that the Rangers support is it can at times be very quick to judge. And it's easy. It's an oft-used phrase that he's no Rangers class, he's no this, he's no that. But I mean, you've got to give the boy time to settle in. He's undoubtedly a good footballer. He's a dogged defender. He's got attributes. The manager's not signed him or sanctioned his signing for no reason. And you'd like to think that it's for footballing reasons as opposed to financial ones. So, I'm not going to judge John Suter. I was quite enthused, is that the right word? I could see why they would be interested in signing a proven Scottish Premier League defender. Obviously, Liam Balogun's moved on, so we definitely needed cover in that department, especially in light of Philip Hollander's ongoing injury concerns and the fact that maybe Nikola Katic is was kind of maybe finding it hard to come back to the level he'd reached before he suffered that bad knee injury. So, no, I mean, it's early days, Colin. You know as well as I do. You've got to give the guy at least, I would say, for 10, half a dozen games before you can truly judge him. And he's got to get a bank of fitness up as well, match sharpness, the whole thing. So, no, I'm not going to read too much into a few pre-season friendlies. It's rightly said. You're up against three pretty sharp operators up top for Spurs yesterday. I think when we stood at the bar yesterday, I was saying that Kulusevski was a danger man. I felt anyway. And then you've got, as Dougie saying, you've got Harry Kane, one of the top strikers in European football, if not world football, and so on. And these guys could get a game for most top teams in Europe. So, it's a hard shift for any defender, far less a new guy that's moved from Tynecastle to Ibrox and is learning to play with, obviously the leader of the back line and Connor Golson, get to know his idiosyncrasies and vice versa for Connor Golson. The only thing I would say that's glaring and the gap between them, especially there was one instance on Tuesday night where Mikel Antonio could drive a fleet of buses through the back line. So they've obviously got that to work on. But no, the boy's a decent player, and if he remains injury free, I expect him to go on and become a solid Rangers performer. But whether he becomes an even better player, only time will tell.
On writing players off, what's the earliest you've ever written off a player?
I put him in a spot. I need to think about that.
I was Sebo. His first touch, I was like, oh, fucking, what have we signed here? His first touch, it was like a 30-yard thing. It just hit him and bounced like 30 yards off him. Well, I'm sitting in the Copeland Reed at the time. I turned to the boy next to me and I said, oh, I've signed a proper donkey here, like. And I was right.
You've joked with memory banks. I think there was a few players in the Paul Le Guen era that were rightly quick to judge. Philip Sable, he must be up there.
I wrote him off in the first game. There we go. Anyway, right, guys, I thought it'd be good to have a wee look at the squad. There's obviously been a bit of movement and players in, players out, all that kind of thing. So, sort of looking at the sort of squad at the moment. So, defensively, left back, we've got Barisic and what's his name? Yilmaz? Ridvan? Am I right there, aye?
Yep.
That's him, yeah. Left centre back, we've got Hollander, Davies, Katic, and Simpson. Right centre back, Golson, Suter, and Leon King. And at right back, we've got Tavernier, Devine, and Zakowski. The goalkeeping situation is quite interesting, I think. McGregor's obviously signed an extension for a year. McCrory might not be there when the window comes. I think there's talk, he's maybe looking to move on for first team football, and obviously John McLaughlin's there. Dougie, in terms of the keeper, who will you go with? Because I don't want to be too heavy and going hard on Alan McGregor, but I think it's fair to say he didn't have his best season last season. He had some key errors that actually proved quite crucial, in terms of dropping points and not winning the league. As you say, he's a great shot stopper. He's very bad at not coming for crosses though, and I think he's getting worse. I think he's pretty much shooted his line out. I think that causes a bit of panic. Your two central defenders when the balls come into the box. A lot of times, there was a couple of times that McLaughlin played last season, particularly that semi-final against Celtic. Cross balls coming for deep, McLaughlin's coming for them, and it just takes a sting and the panic out of the situation. Whereas, if McGregor was in goals, he'd stay rooted to his line and Celtic maybe feel they have a chance. So, after all that spiel, who would you go with? That's the sort of root of the question. Are you going with McGregor or McLaughlin?
Well, to answer it, first of all, we spoke about this towards the end of last season on the podcast, and I said... I thought you were going to say
yesterday, and I was like, I didn't remember that. I had more to think. I don't remember talking about that yesterday.
Personally, I thought last year should have been Alan McGregor's final season at Rangers. We all know he's a very, very good shot stopper, and he's saved us in countless times, and he made some great saves yesterday as well. But when he starts making more errors, not coming off his line or with the ball at his feet, and it starts costing you, that's when you need to weigh up and say, is he the right goalkeeper for us? And I actually think McLaughlin is more suited to our style of football. I think he helps the defence by coming off his line. I think he's better with the ball at his feet. Personally, I thought McLaughlin would be our number one this season, and I thought that McGregor would be there for an important role in the transition, supporting his influence in the dressing room, the coaching side of things. I thought he was going to have a more kind of influential role off the park this season. The fact that he started yesterday, I know that McLaughlin started against West Ham. I just worry that the fact that McGregor started yesterday, that feels to me like the team that Gio has in mind going into next weekend against Livingston. So I think that Gio's potentially thinking McGregor's the man. McGregor is, I've just said, shot stopper, capable of big saves, big moments for us. Certainly made a lot in the Europa League run. But for me, it would be McLaughlin in goals this season.
What about yourself, David? I mean, again, I don't want to, try to be as constructive as possible around McGregor, given his history, given, the service that he's given the club. We'll ignore that wee bit in the middle when he buggered off, right? We'll just paint over that, right? I mean, the service that he's given the club, the saves, the amount of points that he's won us down the years and trophies and all that kind of a thing. But, as I said earlier on, he did have a couple of blunders last season. Do you feel, McLaughlin's the better choice, or would you stick with McGregor this season?
It's difficult to say, Colin. I'm not sitting in the fence that I will be here. I don't think there's any doubt, on paper, Alan McGregor's a far better goalkeeper than Joe McLaughlin. But that said, he's obviously tailing off in the way down in his career. So it's now getting to the stage where is he, on the way down past McLaughlin's level. So that's up for debate. Dougie's pointed out that he's a better player with the ball at his feet and more suited to how, the modern style of play, where balls are going out to the backs and they're trying to build play from the back. I think you write off the presence that Alan McGregor's got at your panel, and I'm genuinely on the fence with this goal. I mean, look, John McLaughlin's a good goalkeeper. Alan McGregor's still a good goalkeeper, but his reflex, his age is going to come in. There was warning signs of it last season, as you rightly say, where we dropped points needlessly, and it ended up with, we tallied up the points differential between ourselves and our chums. It arguably cost us a lead, so that can't be allowed to continue if he's looking as though his powers are on the wane, so to speak. Now it's the art of management that Gio and the staff see him in training every day, and they should be able to hopefully preempt when it might be susceptible to making a big error. Me personally, I'd like to see them go to the market for a goalkeeper. Now, you mentioned earlier Robert McCrory's looking to move on, or certainly in loan to get first team football. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. I wouldn't be surprised if the boy actually left permanently. Yeah. Well, that's a good thing or a bad thing. That's open for debate at another time, perhaps. But I'd like to see them on the market for a goalkeeper, and a goalkeeper that has the type of height and presence that McLaughlin's got, i.e. that is comfortable coming off his line and will alleviate some of the pressure for the centre half to head the ball clear when the balls come into the box and score his game, and the European game for that matter, but primarily Scotland. And obviously a modern goalkeeper who has been, maybe more comfortable with the kind of positions that managers would place on modern day goalkeepers, in that so far as they've got to be good with the ball, better than keepers in the past with the ball at their feet. I mean, if I cast my mind back to Ronald Waterous, he was excellent with the ball at his feet. If we could get somebody like that, with the presence that John McLaughlin's got, and a shot stopper with the capability, the world-class shot stopping capability of Alan McGregor, I think it might be prudent to spend a wee bit of money that we've obviously garnered with sales recently and going to the market and saying a goalkeeper. But I'll trust the manager's judgment. They know far better than I could ever know.
In terms of central midfield guys, looking quite top heavy in that area. You've got Sands, Lundstrom, Kamara, Ryan Jack, Arfield and Davis, who obviously extended in the summer there for another year. Kelly, McCann, there's other boy there that, he's got the heart condition. I don't think we're going to see him anytime soon. Dougie, looking at that, even when you go one up, you've got the sort of number 10. You've got Hadji, Tillman, Lowry, Lawrence, and Glenn Middleton still quoted here. So, is there time for maybe one of those two to maybe go out on loan or leave the club permanently?
I was chatting to one of my mates, Andy, about this earlier on. We seem to have a lot of youngsters who haven't really developed and kicked on, and they're now over the age of 20, where, for me, if they've not broke through to the first team or they're not able to stake a claim for the first team, they shouldn't be here. And unfortunately, while Stephen Kelly and Glenn Middleton, for example, were very promising as they were coming through, I don't think they're good enough for Rangers, and I think the time is right for them to move on. There's a lot of players that we've given new contracts to. In the summer, we've mentioned McGregor. We also gave the contracts to Stephen Davis and Scott Arfield, who won't be regular first-team players. They're not going to start every week, but I think they're similar to McGregor, huge influences off the park. We don't need to speak about Stephen Davis's influence. He's Britain's all-time highest capped international footballer. And Scott Arfield, for example, when you were watching the pre-season footage, a lot of it was Scott Arfield in the training drills, and motivation, bit of banter amongst the team. I think they're huge off the pitch, but it's on the pitch that we really need to have players that make the difference. And it's funny you mentioned midfield and the fact that we are heavy in that position. We're very heavy at the back, but I think at the back we could lose a lot of players and not feel it in the squad. I'm thinking guys like Simpson didn't even feature in the squad against Queen's Park today. Katic came on at half time today against Queen's Park. Hollander's injury problems, challenges whether anyone would take him at this stage because of his injury problems. But in midfield, for me, I actually wanted us to go and strengthen our midfield this season, and it was a toss-up between one of two positions, if not both. One, I don't think we can rely on Ryan Jack for the full season, for 90 minutes every week. I think Ryan Jack's an absolutely tremendous player. I think we're a much better team when Ryan Jack's on the pitch. I think when he's fit, Ryan Jack and John Lundstrom are you're almost your two sitters in that team, especially if we're going to go to a 4-2-3-1, which we seem to have played throughout pre-season as well as a 4-3-3. I think Jack's brilliant. But in the games where he's not going to be available, when you look at a lot of the other players at central midfield, they all offer very similar. You mentioned Sands, I mentioned Kamara earlier on. These are guys that are typically fairly defensive-minded. One of the things that we've really strengthened this summer is guys that can put the ball in the net. And I wanted us to go and sign a box-to-box midfielder who could sit beside Lundstrom in the games that Jack's not available, the games that potentially he's not suited to play the formation. Somebody who can go forward, but somebody who can put the ball in the net. So I wanted a number 8. I've just mentioned Sands. So before I talk about the number 10 position, I've just mentioned Sands there. I mentioned Kamara, how good he's been in pre-season. I think Sands has been good pre-season as well, actually. Yeah. And my prediction is, when you look at last summer and you were looking at the players that you thought could have went for big money in this window, all eyes would have been on the likes of Morelos or Kent, even Aribo to a degree. I don't think people would have predicted the rise that Calvin Bassey had through the 12 months, or even arguably the latter 6 months of the season. He just massively improved under our coaching staff. And you look at the team right now and you think, who could be our next player that could really grab this season and push on the way that Calvin Bassey did? And I might surprise a few people by saying this, but I think James Sands has it in him. I think I've seen enough of James Sands to know there's a good footballer in there. I just worry about his versatility. It holds a lot of players back. Will he play centre back? Will he play centre mid? He is quite defensive minded. So is Lundstrom. So is Jack. So is Kamara. Is he going to play on a regular basis? So that's my only challenge with Sands. But the other position in midfield that I thought we could have strengthened is the number 10 position. I know you mentioned Tillman. We obviously signed Lawrence as well. When we sold Aribo, I thought we had Lawrence in to be pushing Aribo in the team, especially given Hadji's injuries. I thought Lawrence was going to be a squad player, somebody that you could bring onto the games that you're needing a wee bit more guile, somebody direct, somebody could put the ball in the net, somebody play that killer pass. When we've sold Aribo, I don't think we've necessarily replaced Aribo with like-for-like quality, and it's difficult to judge, particularly Tillman at this stage, because he's a young lad. He's not had a lot of game time in the friendlies that have been televised. But I think you're looking at Lawrence, you're looking at Tillman to play that role. And there was a lot of rumours on social media around players that we were looking at. Fulgini was the one over in France, ended up signing for the German team. When you're in for a player like that, and he went for something like €6-7 million, I thought we were going to really strengthen in that position. A name then emerged of Darius Olaru, who's a Romanian player. And again, you look at these guys' footage, you look at their credentials, they're top players. Gio's words after the Spurs game suggest that Yilmaz is our last signing of the summer transfer window, unless players leave. And when he says about players leaving, I think he's excluding the guys I've mentioned already, like your Simpson, your Katish, that you won't miss. I think he's maybe thinking guys like Roof. If we can move someone like Roof on, we'll need to bring another forward in, because right now we've got a heavy reliance on Čolak and needing him to stay fit because of the injury to Morelos. But personally, I would have wanted us to sign at least one quality midfield player to start, and I'm a wee bit disappointed we've not, and I just hope that doesn't come back and bite us in the arse.
David, left wing we've got Kent and Sakala, on the right wing we've got Wright and the new boy Matondo, but want to sort of focus on the striker position because of the situation that Dougie's mentioned there now. Morelos, out until at least September. Roof out for a while. Sorry, that's the thing that's kicking in. I'm slurring my words again. Roof is, injury prone. Now, I mean, I don't think any of us can deny that Roof's a fantastic player. I mean, his goal scoring record at Ibrox, I think I saw something at the start of the other day there, it's like 34 goals in 72 games or something like that. But it's getting him on the pitch. That's the problem. It's getting him on there. So we're really reliant on Čolak at the moment, and big game coming up in the Champions League qualifier. We maybe actually need to sign another striker. I mean, I know Dougie said there that, Gio said that no more in unless someone goes. I'm looking at Kamara and thinking that there might still be an opportunity for him to go, especially when you look at the sort of cover we have in that area. But are we a bit thin up top? You know what I mean? Are we looking at those three strikers and two of them are out? It arguably cost us the Europa League last season, the injuries in that area of the field. Should we be looking at signing another striker?
Yeah, I think if they were long-term injuries, then undoubtedly. If Morelos is predicted to come back in September and Čolak remains injury-free during these important qualifying stages, then you could make the case for no. However, I think most of us, despite Kemar Roof, recognising that he's a good player for us, his form during the season of the 155, he played a very, very important part in winning the league with his goals, and important goals at that. However, he's just unreliable. He's all the kind of the stories that we heard coming out of the fans in Yorkshire telling us about how unfit he was, and then all how prone to missing a lot of games he was when he was at Ellen Road. That's all came to pass. Same way with the fans at Anderlecht, they were saying, he was obviously a good player, but we couldn't get him on the pitch, and it's just the guy's physical makeup. He's obviously prone to injury, so he's been. I've seen the day that he's been linked to the Sheffield Wednesday. Whether he want to move to League One, permanently or on loan, I doubt. But I think that, if push came to shove, if another side was in for him, I don't think there'd be too many amongst the Rangers support who would be making the case for keeping him, given his injury record. So, to try to answer your question, I'd be like, if money was no object, then obviously I'd done the market for a striker. I mentioned to you guys yesterday, if Antonio Čolak gets injured, I'd be seriously concerned, because especially going into these Champions League qualifiers, because then you're looking at the line and somebody is, is erratic, shall we to say the least, is Fashion Sakala, and even he's been linked to be moving away from Rangers. There's been rumours of that. So, I think in an ideal world we're looking to go into the market again for a striker, but obviously that might be based on moving players out the door first. And you mentioned Glenn Kamara. I think whisper it here, that Ryan Kent, he will be earmarked to move on. They would be looking to cash in, and him especially given his contractual situation, a year left. So, I wouldn't rule anything in or out, unless the manager comes out and categorically states after real match, hopefully there's plenty of paper in the coming days, and says that's how it's done, no matter what, or we're in the market for another player, and we can then work on that basis. But I think you'd be forgiven for saying we should be in the market for a striker. No two ways about it.
On Ryan Kent, Dougie, a year on his deal, as David said there. Is he one you think might still move on?
I think it's a big question mark, to be honest, around the two major contracts that are up for expiry next summer. Both Kent and Morelos, they're two key players for us, but they're also two massive assets. We've just seen the great business that we've been able to do and keep Connor Goldson. I think that shouldn't be underrated. I think Connor Goldson was a huge player for us for the years that he's been here. And I think it's brilliant he's been able to sign on for another 4 years. But the question mark just now over Kent and Morelos, we must have our eyes on them remaining. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here for me. We moved Aribo on very promptly when I think it was known that he wasn't going to sign another contract, because we had to get money in. We have to get money for these guys. We can't allow them to leave for free. We had a conversation last night, Colin, about Ryan Kent. I'm actually a huge Ryan Kent fan. I think Kent's a great player. I think he needs to add a bit more numbers to his game. But one of the things that I've said time and time again about Ryan Kent is he was our one creative player in the team in the last couple of seasons. And what that allows, particularly domestically, is teams to double up on him. I think when you've got, if you're playing a 4-2-3-1 and you've got Lawrence in the hole, or you've got Matondo at right wing, I think it makes it very difficult to double up on Ryan Kent. And I actually think that this could be Ryan Kent's best season for us this year if we play to his strengths, and I think we can and we will. So the answer to your question is yes, I would play him. I would definitely play him. I'd definitely try and keep him. I think he'll have a big season for us. The worry when you're talking about the squad is if anything happens to Ryan Kent, it's the guys that step in that position. I know Lawrence can play in the left, but he's not the paciest. I think Gio likes to have somebody with pace at left wing. The alternatives at left wing are not too, they're not too great. Scott Wright's probably primarily in the right minded, but I heard he was very wasteful again today against Queen's Park. I don't think Scott Wright's the player that we all hoped he would be. And the other option on the left-hand side is Fashion Sakala, who he had great numbers last season. I won't dispute his numbers, but just technically he's just not good enough. And I think one of the things that Ryan Kent has is a football brain. I think he can read a game of football well. I think he can link up with players well. I think Fashion Sakala is not necessarily football intelligent. So yes, I'd play Kent, but my concerns would be if anything was to happen to anyone in that front three is who else to be bringing behind them if the unfortunate thing does happen and they miss it. They miss any games.
On the Ryan Kent thing, David, is it, I'm going to bring Bassi and Aribo into the equation here. So, we've benefited from players coming in, either on Bosman or, cross-border fee, very little. We've managed to move on Aribo for a good amount, 10 million. I mean, the deal on Bassi is just incredible. That's an incredible piece of business when you consider the money that you come in for. Given the money that we've made there, and also with the boy Patterson, are we maybe in a better position to take a hit, like losing Kent on a free next year, financially, than we would have been, because we have made such a substantial sort of profit on those three players?
I think you could take a hit, but I don't think the business model would allow that. I don't think that's the board, to my mind anyway. I don't think they would willingly want to work towards that model. If it's all hypotheticals, Colin. I can see where you're coming from suggesting it. The only thing I would say with regards to Ryan Kent, and when I said there whisper it, I wasn't hoping that he moves on, but it could well be that a lot of who we keep in terms of the assets and will probably be largely predicated on whether we make the Champions League groups. If we make the Champions League groups, then I can see them weighing in Alfie and Ryan Kent, and possibly, if it's a year extension or a 2-year extension, then great. If it's even longer, then even better. Could those contracts be extended regardless of making the Champions League groups if we drop into Europa League? Quite possibly. I mean, it's all hypotheticals. I don't want him to leave. He's a good player. I think agreeing a lot with Dougie here, but I think that with Matondo being brought in, I think that could alleviate some of the pressure from Ryan to make a lot of the chance they're running and in terms of chance creation. Tremendous work rate. That's undoubted. His numbers never tailed off last season as opposed to the season before. But no, to come to the point, I don't think we really want to be in a situation where we're letting good assets go for free. It could be a case of back in the day when David Murray had a gentleman's agreement with Brian Laudrup to let him go for nothing at the end of the season. It could be a case of that. You gave us a good few years of service, and we'll let you go at the end of your contract, and that's a gentleman's agreement. If that's the case, then fine. We'll just need to suck it up as the supporters. But I've got an inclination and a strong feeling that every penny's a prisoner, and they've managed to build up a decent head of steam in terms of the monies that they've brought in, especially for Bass, as you rightly say. I mean, for a guy that's played so limited first team football, to realise that profit on him is tremendous business, and I don't think that the board are in the mood for letting prize assets walk out the door for nothing's free agents.
On the Bass's deal, did you enjoy the rage for their cousins across the city on social media and on Radio Clyde and all that?
Strange bunch, aren't they? I loved the fact that Ajax were at, so given that Ajax list themselves on the stock exchange, they by law have to quote the fee that they paid for them, and they still disputed the fee. They're bonkers. Yeah, what's the guy? What's his name? Inside SPFL. Inside SPFL. Yeah, it's like 6 million. In Scotland as well. It's like 6 million, 2 million add-ons, 12 million total, and then Ajax came out, boom, 23 million or whatever it is. It was quality. I must admit, I enjoyed it. But I mean, on a serious note, for a good few weeks here through the summer, you're hearing a lot of complaints from Rangers supporters. We're not signing anybody. We're not selling players at the right time, all that kind of thing. You would have to say that Ross Wilson's done some seriously good business with those 2 deals. I think the 2 deals are massive for the club. I think they set us up well for this summer and beyond. You just mentioned there about the transfer business was all in the kind of low ball free market range until we sold Aribo and Bassey. That then allowed us to go and spend money. I think they are massive for us. I was watching Sky Sports News when the Bassey deal went through, and it showed you a stat around the top 5 record sales from Rangers, and it speaks volumes that 3 of the 5 are within the last 6 months. David just mentioned our model. I think that's the model that we've strived for a number of years, and I think Gerrard played a massive role in bringing us to this stage. But I think Gio's the man to take it and execute it to the next level. And as I said earlier on, we get amazing money for Bassey. It's transformational. It sets a benchmark for me, but it also sets a massive challenge as to who can be next, who can go. Rangers give players such an amazing platform. The Europa League run, we're going to come on and talk about the Champions League football again. Regardless, we should be in Europe next season. We should be in Europe for at least past Christmas. It gives players an amazing platform, and it's now up to these players to go and take it. And Ajax is a top move. Let's see who else can go and earn themselves another top move and a lot more money than what we can pay. On the Champions League, David, so
We've got the game coming up against Union Saint Gilles. Is that, have I pronounced that correctly? I'm not quite sure. We've been so consistent in the Europa League over the last sort of 4 or 5 seasons. Obviously, we had the Malmo incident last season that prohibited us getting to the Champions League group stage. Although I think we could all agree it worked out fairly okay in the end, reaching the final of the Europa League. And part of me feels that that's our kind of level. That's, part of me thinks getting into the Champions League, it's great financially, but you do kind of fear that you could be in the end of a couple of scuddings and all that kind of thing. Whereas the Europa League, as we've proved, it's our level. We can compete and we can get quite far into that competition. But I mean, on this game coming up, I think a lot of people have sort of, that sounds like a good sort of draw for us. I think this could be a tricky tie. I think this team could be quite dangerous. They were second in the Belgian League last season. Apparently they were odds on to win it and just sort of caved in towards the end of the season. I don't think it's a stick on that Rangers are going to go through here.
No, it's not a gimme, Colin. Look, we've learned through bad experience that they just can't afford to take teams lightly in Europe. It's especially this side from Belgium. I mean, they finished the regular Jupiler League top, and it was only in the Champions League playoffs that they came on top and ended up finishing second. So I've looked at their squad worth on the transfer market earlier, and comparatively speaking, our squad worth dwarfs their squad is something like 4 times or over 4 times their worth, and you guys know as well as I do, and the listeners that are listening in, the game's not played in paper. And I've got some tidy operators by all accounts. So, no, I certainly would not be taking them lightly. I think that the management team are professional enough not to take them lightly either. Obviously, we've spoke there about the injury concerns that we've got. And given that, Antonio Jovac's new at the club and we're bedding them in, these are the types of games where just through a lack of, developed rhythm where, we could potentially come on start. Hopefully, it goes without saying that I hope that doesn't come turn out to be the case. But no, we can ill afford to take any side lightly, especially at this point in the season. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they fare against the Belgian side, and let's hope that we can progress to the next round and see where the side, if it evolves quite quickly and gels quite quickly, if we up to quite a reasonable level, and then see if we can manage to get into the groups, what level we're at. I mean, you're saying there that if we found our level, I can tend to agree with you in a general sense that maybe Europa League at their spending power could tend to be where their benchmark, but you never know. There's sides where the shortfall's made up with a bit of tactical nous, a bit of player development, as Gio has undoubtedly shown with Calvin Bassey. I mean, Bassey under Gerrard looked to be a bit part player. After COVID gate, tons of fans wanted him out the door.
Yeah.
Gio comes in, makes him look as if he's equally adept at the back position as a centre half position to such an extent. A lot is going forward. So Calvin Bassey is a cornerstone in central defence. So that gives me, I'm looking forward to seeing how the coaching staff develop players. What Dougie saying there, the next guy that we can possibly move on for big money. I mean, they've got a great opportunity to put themselves in the highest club shop window in world football by getting into the Champions League. So all to play for Colin, but I stress, don't take any side lightly. Treat them with the due respect that they require, and hopefully we raise our game and we can show what we're all about.
Dougie, I'll give the final word to yourself. I mean, we've spoke about the finances there, with the deals for Bassey and for Arrivo, and obviously Nathan Patterson in January there. So it does feel like the financial side of things have, the model is kicked in. We've made a huge amount of profit. Does that take some of the importance of qualifying for the Champions League? The financial aspect. does that lessen it a wee bit? It felt like a big blow last season, but this season it feels like, when you consider the run. I was reading something in the Athletic that basically said that the run that Rangers had to the Europa League final basically equated to qualifying for the group stages. In terms of the revenue that came in. So we essentially did recoup most of that money last season by not qualifying for the Champions League. We've already made substantial profits this season in terms of especially the deal for Bassey. Bassey's away, Aribo's away, best part of 30 million. Approaching sort of 40, 50 when you put Patterson into the equation. Is the sort of urgency financially, is that lessened a little bit now, or do you still feel we need to get in there?
No, the urgency's lessened. I was on after Malmo last season and I was doing my nutting because I just felt that Champions League football was massive for us last season. I felt like it would have given us the opportunity to build from a position of strength last season, and where we didn't qualify, we then didn't have any money to go and strengthen the team further. But the model's properly kicked in since then. We've had 3 major sales since then, as you mentioned, Patterson, Aribo and Bassey. So the financial urgency is just not as it's not needed as much as what it was 12 months ago. Obviously, missing out in the Champions League football last season was massively offset by our run in the Europa League, but we can't assume that's going to happen again this season if we do get knocked out. And I was looking at the financials if we do get through to the Champions League, and they're massive. For reaching the group stages, it's €15.6 million. For a win, it's €2.8 million. For a draw, it's €900,000. So that's massive. It's massive for us. So it would be great if we did qualify. It would set us up financially again for further strengthening of the squad. And unfortunately for us, what we are seeing from Celtic winning the league last season and gaining automatic entry is that they've been able to go out and drop serious cash on players without needing to sell. So their model's been different. I think that's what we can hope to see if we qualify for the Champions League, that we don't have that same reliance in selling players to use the money generated to strengthen further.
Am I right in thinking, though, before we wrap up, if we do qualify for the Champions League, the money that Celtic are getting is then halved because the pot is for the country, it's not per club?
It's definitely less. I couldn't tell you if it's half or not, but on the qualification, obviously, Dave has just touched on what we know about the Belgian team, and I know we're about to run out of time, but don't forget there is another round to go through after this. So if we do beat them, there is another round. We don't enter the group stages at that point, and the teams that we can face in the next round get tougher. I think it's between the winners of Monaco and PSV or the winners of Sturm Graz. So I think Sturm Graz are playing the winners of Fenerbahce and Dynamo Kiev. So it's going to be one of those teams. And you just need to look at PSV and Monaco and their recruitment this summer. PSV recruited Xavi Simons from Paris Saint-Germain that we obviously were rumoured for over 6 months to be interested in him. But Monaco have went and dropped serious cash on a couple of new additions. They've signed Minamino for £13.5 million from Liverpool and Breel Mbolo for 11.25 from Borussia Mönchengladbach. So the level of competition just does get that wee bit harder if we do beat the Belgian team. And there's no guarantee we'll get there. What I would say is my final word is last season when we didn't get there against Malmo, I was raging. I thought it was a massive blow. If we don't get there now, you just touched on it there, Colin. I think the Europa League's our level. I think if we qualified for the Champions League group stages, we'd arguably be the whipping boys. If we get through to the Europa League, I was heartbroken after Seville. I said to my dad, I think this is possibly the only time I'll see Rangers in a European final for the rest of my life. See, as things have settled and time's moved on, why can we not do it again? And if we do bring in Neil Mattis and you look at the team that we've got right now, we might not have necessarily improved the starting 11, but I think we've definitely improved the squad. And I think it was the squad that let us down in the Europa League final. When you think about the Morelos injury, I just look at that with so much regret. If Morelos wasn't injured and wasn't missing that game, I think it would be completely different. And I think we've we've strengthened that real weakness. We've brought in more players that put the ball in the net in the final third. So we can dare to dream, even if we do get put out of the Champions League. I don't think it's as doom and gloom as what it was last season.
Yep, and not as doom and gloom as last season as we will leave it. So a big thanks to David and Dougie for their contributions tonight. Great stuff as always. We were live tonight, guys, but the pod will be available to download and stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, Spotify, all the usual places. We'll have a preview show out next Friday, looking at the first game of the season against Livingston, and obviously we'll have the Sunday show next week. So, and in the meantime, get yourself onto the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. Thanks for listening tonight, guys. It's good to be back after the break. I'm saying that I was gutted tonight. I've quite enjoyed getting my Sunday nights back to myself, but there we go, back on it now. So hope you've enjoyed it. As I said, we'll be here for the rest of the season. So until the next time, bye for now.